Hey guys, Metal Viking 82 here, back with the third and final part, the top 10 of my top 40 albums of 2023. Yeah, 2023 was just a killer year for metal, especially death metal. A lot of great releases from new and old bands alike. It was really tough narrowing this down. Of course, like I said before, these are not in any kind of order, just kind of how I, you know, sat them down and wrote them out. The last two I will show were kind of, I guess you say, vying for the album of the year spot for me, if anything. But I will get to that later. Yeah, just so many great releases, and it was so tough to narrow things down. And I kind of got a late jump on really getting this list put together, so it didn't make things any easier for me. But I'm going to jump right into these last 10 here, starting with the brand new one from Inflames entitled Foregone. Absolutely killer artwork on that too. I love that artwork. But yeah, the 14th album from the Swedish death metalers is probably their best album of their most recent releases, and it definitely has more of that old school In Flames sound to it. Some people said this was a reaction to the Halo Effect, which was a band, of course, made out of old In Flames members, releasing an album that had that old In Flames sound. So, of course, the original In Flames had to kind of mimic that or whatever you want to say, but the band said that had nothing to do with it, but whatever the reasons, they put out an absolutely killer album last year. It's heavy yet catchy. It's got great vocals on it, both harsh and clean vocals. Solid musicianship throughout this whole thing, and I found myself going back to this album over and over and over again while I was at work. Definitely my favorite track on here, though, is Pure Light of Mind. That chorus in that song, just the way he delivers it, I absolutely loved it. And yeah, this is just an absolute banger of an album. All right, got another late discovery for me in 2023, and cheers and thanks go out to the classy one himself, Lonnie, for introducing me to this band. Excuse me. This is a pretext to human suffering with endless cycle of suffering. The debut album from this international technical brutal death metal act, which has members in the US, Canada, and Mexico, is just full of fast riffing with some slower, chuggier sections and some kind of dissonant sounding riffs at times, thick rumbling bass, just solid drums with some really nice double bass work and blast beats. They actually get really super fast at times, and I really dug the vocals on here. They're really varied, between low growls to kind of more mid-range shouts and just nasty sounding screams. On the archives, it does list that they are deathcore as well, but I really don't hear much in the way of deathcore on here. Maybe a few kind of breakdown style riffs here, the typical deathcore style chugs that you would hear. But overall, this is just pure technical brutal death metal. Definitely recommended for me. Next up, we have Porphyrion with Blood Orgies Beneath Disgraced Temples. Yeah, this thing is just old school death metal, not only musically, but even the production brings to mind the heyday of death metal, as it's not really overly polished. It kind of has that kind of really primitive old school feel to it overall. It's only a little over 25 minutes in length, but it's still classified as a full-length album and not an EP. Yeah, this thing is just filled with mid to fast-paced riffs with some tremolo-ish style sections here and there, as groovy and galloping chugs, and you got solos that are just really wild sounding with some nice use of the whammy bar on here. The bass isn't mixed too high in the mix, but it is very easily heard throughout this whole thing. I love the drums with the nice double bass and blast beats on here. Never anything overly flashy, just some really solid death metal drumming. The vocals are these nice rumbly style growls with a bit of a reverb to them that kind of made me think a little bit of Acid Witch at times. But yeah, definitely a really solid album. I cannot wait to see what this band has in store for us in the future. Next up, we have EOS Side with Metamorphosis. Got some Dutch death metal here, or death thrash, more like it. Yeah, this is the first album from this band since 2013, and is just pure old school thrashy death metal. Great production on this thing overall. I thought lots of headbangable riffs, really solid drumming, and just powerful yet intelligible vocals on here. One thing that kind of stood out to me while listening to this is track number 6, Vortex Singularity. I loved that slow building intro with the chugs and the double bass getting louder as the song goes on, and then it finally settles into this nice fast groove at about 42 seconds in that kind of has a little bit of a Slayer vibe to it, I thought. But yeah, really awesome to see these Dutch death metalers back in action. So yeah, go check out the new EOS Side if you have not yet. Oh, this has been one of my favorite albums throughout the whole year. I mean, this young band really blew me away with this album. This is Disguised Malignance with Entering the Gateways. Excuse me. Yeah, these young Finnish death metalers delivered just hefty sounding guitars with fast, heavy riffs and, nice chuggy grooves. They really get the head banging throughout this entire album. Thick, twangy bass with a bit of an Alex Websterish feel to them. Killer sounding drums and just powerful mid-range growls. I mean, these guys are all relatively young. I think the oldest member is like 21 years old. But yeah, these guys know how to make old school sounding death metal, and they do it right. Definitely a band that you want to keep your eyes on. All right. Next up, we have Suffocation with Hymns from the Apocrypha. Another old school act delivering an absolute banger in 2023. This is the band's first album since Frank Mullins left in 2018, and the first to feature their new vocalist, Ricky Myers. Mullins does make an appearance on here on the last track, which is a re-recording of a track from the Breeding the Spawn release. Yeah, this album is so damn good. I mean, Derek Boyer's bass makes his presence known throughout this whole thing. It's not too high up in the mix, but it is easily heard just twanging away throughout the whole thing. Filled with just stellar guitar work. I mean, come on, Terrence Hobbs is just the fucking man. Pounding drums. I really love the production of the drums on here. Just really killer sounding blast beats. And, Ricky sounds just savage. And he even kind of reminds you of Frank at times. And I love when he does those even lower death growls. Excuse me. And, yeah. Some of the things kind of stood out to me on here, though. You get into track number 2, Perpetual Deception, about a minute and 34 into that song. I love how it suddenly goes to this really slow, heavy chug with that bass twang underneath of it, and Ricky's growls joining in at the 145 mark. Just sounds so sinister and so badass. Then you get track number 6, Descendants. I love that Boyer's bass gets a little bit of a moment to shine here at about the 152 mark. You really get to hear the nice tone that he got on this album. But yeah, overall, another absolute banger from these legends in the death metal scene. Next up, Garroted with, or Garroted, however you want to pronounce it, with Bewitchment of the Dark Ages. Yeah, this is the 4th album from this Kansas-based death metal act, and it delivers just fast-paced, dirty toned guitars with a bit of a Cannibal Corpse feel, a little bit, and just some absolutely killer sounding guitar solos that sound out of control, yet they're reined in at the same time with some nice use of the whammy bar. Bass isn't too high up in the mix, yet easily heard with this Alex Webster-ish tone to it. Just absolutely beastly sounding drums with lots of fast double bass and blast beats, and topped off with these savage yet intelligible growls with absolutely nasty screams thrown in. That the screams actually kind of remind me a little bit of a C.R. Pettit from the next band that you're going to see. But yeah, this thing has no let up to it. It just absolutely pummels you from start to finish. An absolute banger of an album. Again, another band you definitely want to keep your eyes on. Next up, Angerot with The Profound Recreant. Yeah, this is the 3rd album from this South Dakota-based group of deathmongers, and this thing got plenty of spins throughout 2023. In fact, within the last couple weeks, it's definitely been getting listened to a lot. And it's just got heavy, crunchy guitars, giving everything an overall evil atmosphere to it. Absolutely killer drumming on this thing, and just absolutely ferocious vocals from vocalist C.R. Pettit. This band has just gotten better and better with each release, and it's so cool to think that I'm actually friends with yeah, a couple of the members in this band, Jason Ellsworth and C.R. Pettit. But yeah, these guys just absolutely whoop ass, and they are on a roll, and I cannot wait to see what they have in store for us. All right, down to the last two here. And like I said, these two were really vying for, you know, what would be considered the album of the year spot for me. And it was so tough trying to decide, because I listened to both of these a lot. But in the end, this is how it ended up being. This is how I decided what was going to be technically number 2 and number 1, considering like I said, I did not really rank these. But first up, we have Devangelic with Zool. Yeah, these Italian brutal death metalers gave us a hell of a Nile-inspired album to hold us over until Nile finally releases some new material in 2024. This thing is just fast, technical, it's heavy as fuck, and I just love the overall theme of this album. This is another one that I listen to regularly while I am working, and it really gets the blood pumping, kind of wakes me up, because when you go in at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to work and you're up since 2 o'clock, it makes for a long day, but this definitely helps wake you up. Favorite track on here, without a doubt, is Worship the Black Flame. That growl at the 3:53 mark, oh, every time that comes on, I'm just like, God damn. And I still remember the first time I heard it. I was working away, and that came on. I just stopped, and I was like, damn. But yeah, go check out the new Devangelic if you have not. Absolute banger. And finally, if I were to pick a album of the year, like I said many times already, I did not rank these, but if I had to, this would be my number 1 album of the year. That is the new one from the Godfathers of Death Metal, Cannibal Corpse, with Chaos Horrific. I mean, it's Cannibal Corpse. You know what to expect when you got a Cannibal Corpse album, and you know it's going to at least make your list somewhere down the line. Yeah, the Legends have returned with yet another banger in their really impressive catalog. I think Eric Rutan has really brought a new fire to this band, despite many naysayers trying to say that he is trying to turn this band into Hate Eternal 2.0, which I think is absolute bullshit. Just so many good songs on here. Some of my favorites, though, Summon for Sacrifice. That song is just so damn heavy. Blood Blind, both of which are basically, the singles you hear on Liquid Metal. Pitchfork Impalement is another banger. And finally, Draw You Empty. I just love that slow heaviness of that song as it builds to about the 55-second mark, and then it picks up to a nice kind of more mid-tempo paced heaviness. Yeah, Cannibal Corpse, Chaos Horrific would be definitely my album of the year. Go check it out if you have not. And that is going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing. And until next time, stay brutal. Let's see how killer 2024 is.